Good evening, San Diego. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carlene Chavis, and thank you for tuning in for your CBS 8 Plus weather update. Well, we saw more of that afternoon sunshine, and unless you were at the beach, then you were still dealing with the cloud cover. It was just hugging that coastline. Now, that will also be the case for tomorrow. So the clouds are moving right back in for our marine layer to be reinforced west of the mountains. And then as we get into tomorrow afternoon, a very similar pattern. We see the cloud cover retreat all the way towards the beaches. That's where it's going to favor and keep temperatures pretty moderate compared to the rest of the county. Still feeling the warmth out there. Warmer temperatures are expected over the weekend, especially on Father's Day and even into the start of next week. Now, they will slip by a degree or two on Monday, and then we gear up for a little bit more heat, and that will be on Tuesday, and then temperatures come down more with a dip in a jet stream right over the west, and that's going to be by the middle of next week into the second half. So we'll get to all those details coming up. But earlier today, we had a brush fire that broke out in Carlsbad. Now, one thing that we had that wasn't working against it was Mother Nature, and so we were dealing with some gusty winds that did pick up. They were around the teens, so it was a light gust, but most sustained wind speeds were fairly light, under about 10 miles per hour. Now, when you talk about that, you're also talking about the higher humidity that was felt right there along the coast. Well, that's basically the ingredients for not talking about fire weather working against the CAL FIRE firefighters that were out there for today. But keeping in mind that they did have a lot of dry vegetation, and that is what was being burned right there in Carlsbad. And unfortunately, that is something that we have a lot of across the entire county. We have had a deficit, and we continue to see it grow, especially as we go into our dry season. And we're talking about no chances for wet weather in the forecast. But we have had a deficit since the start of this rainy season. And that's because it has not been as active as the past couple of years with atmospheric rivers that have been relentless. So as a result, drier conditions have brought more of a deficit across the county. And you're talking about Carlsbad, close to about 5 inches of a deficit. Also seeing that 5-inch mark, that was for downtown. Also seeing a little bit more than 6 inches for Ramona. So drought conditions are in full force. They have returned. We've had a deficit going strong. And so thankfully we didn't have the critically dry conditions out there, and also talking about strong gusty winds. We just didn't have those fire weather concerns, but we do have that dry vegetation. So that's something to be mindful of, especially as we go through the next 7 days, and we're not talking about chances for wet weather. In fact, we're talking about chances for some much warmer temperatures in the forecast. So we'll get to those coming up, but as mentioned, dry conditions will stick around. At best, maybe a little bit of mist from the marine layer. It's going to be patchy at best, but that's about it. That's all we're really looking at over the next 7 days, and that doesn't even look to be more measurable. So the reason this setup is happening, area of low pressure that's been bringing relentless rainfall across Texas. They were dealing with more than 6 inches of rainfall in one day, and that was in the San Antonio area. Now, that low does move a little bit more towards the north, as well as seeing it move towards the east. So northeast direction leads to flood concerns across Arkansas. For us, we have this area of high pressure that becomes more amplified, and so that brings in a lot more of the heat. You have a dip in the jet stream, and so that's where the area of low pressure that moves in, and that is going to bring in some added cloud cover. So we're going to see some high clouds into the start of the weekend. But then we notice that this ridge becomes more amplified. That's because with the area of low pressure towards the east and one towards the west, the area of high pressure has nowhere else to go except for up. So that amplifies the ridge, and that's what's going to bring in the heat for us by the second half of the weekend. So temperatures are going to be above seasonal for this time of the year, upwards of about 5 to 15 degrees above seasonal. When we look at our overnight lows, still pretty consistent out there. Those widespread 50s in the forecast, 59 degrees for Escondido, the same for Vista. Also talking about 60 degrees for downtown. Now, when you look at your daytime highs for tomorrow, basically see where that marine layer is going to be favoring. So you still have that with the widespread 60s right there along the coast, upper 60s to low 70s. If you're going to go out to the fair, keep in mind Del Mar, 68 degrees. Also still seeing some cloud cover into the afternoon hours. Widespread 80s in the forecast east of the 15, and also talking about 106 for Borrego Springs. Your surf forecast, we have the surf about 2 to 4 feet and a moderate risk of rip currents at our local beaches. But yesterday we had the full strawberry moon, so it reached that peak illumination. Now, that's also creating that full moon an extra pull when it comes to our evening high tides. And so at nighttime, we've been seeing these around 6 feet. That will be the case not just for tonight, but also by Friday night as well. And then we start to back away and see the tides starting to subside a little bit more. And that's going to be over the weekend. So just something to be mindful of. When you look at the next 7 days for the coast and inland valleys, you have those upper 60s for the coast. Mid-70s, and that will be for Father's Day for coastal communities. Also looking at those mid-70s into the start of next week. So not really talking about a big change up in the forecast. It's not until the middle of next week we start to see a little bit more of the cloud cover, and then also talking about minor slip in temperatures. And that's because we are going to have an area of low pressure that moves over the west again, but it's going to be relatively weak. That's why it's only a minor slip. You have 70s again tomorrow for the inland valleys, and then you're looking at widespread upper 80s to low 90s. That is going to be on Sunday for the inland valleys and holding strong all the way into the start of next week. Those temperatures slip a little bit more. That's going to be by the middle of next week, but still in the 80s. And that's kind of actually getting back to something that's a little bit more seasonal for this time of the year, especially 82 Thursday of next week. For the mountains, you have the 80s into the weekend, 90s returning by Sunday. You stay in that range for much of next week. And temperatures have already been hot in the desert. We've already been talking about the triple-digit heat, but it gets to 112 on Sunday. That would be the hottest temperature so far this year for the desert. And then looking at temperatures only slightly backing away as we go into next week, 110 by Wednesday of next week. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a great night.